Hello, everyone. This is OG. Today, I'm very excited because I have someone that I know for a few years already. We've been doing a number of events together. And I think the story that we're going to have here is going to be very, very exciting. So, Sid, who is the Chief Data and AI Officer at Club Med. For those who don't know who Club Med is, it's a French company, worldwide company actually. They are in the travel and hospitality business. They are really huge. Sid has been driving AI transformation there. So, Sid, very happy to have you today.
Thank you, Olivier. Excited to be here.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna, as usual, guys, we're gonna jump straight into the topic, right? So before I start the topic of today, maybe Sid, of course, Club Med has been all over the place publicly as a company that has achieved successful AI transformation, right? So maybe if you could start by quickly explaining what is success for you, right? How does it look like at Club Med today in concrete terms?
Yeah, and I'll be very pragmatic and humble over here. I wouldn't say that we have already transformed, and I wouldn't say that we are already successful. But I would say that we are on our way to being successful, and we are on our way to um, putting in place AI for the benefit of the clients, for the benefit of our GOs and GEs all around the world. And the thing that is really exciting and interesting, the people with whom I discuss, is that we have adopted an AI first posture or mindset. And this is quite mysterious, or let's say fascinating for people, because Club Med at the core is a human company. It's a totally human company. Human experiences, relationships, ambience, hospitality, these are our core values and core value proposition. So how can a profoundly human company become AI first is what people are asking, and that's what I'm trying to explain to you and to my colleagues and elsewhere.
Great. That's great. So today we are not going to talk about technology. We are not going to have any geeky conversation, although that's also very interesting as a topic. But today we are going to focus on the human side, the organization side, and probably the first thing that people would like to know, given the size of your company, right? So it's how do you structure yourself for this AI transformation and this AI operation, right? At the organization level, if we look at how you have created and how you are managing your team to drive this transformation. Could you talk about that? Could you describe what the team is, how big it is, how what are the key roles for people to really have an idea of what it takes to drive transformation inside a large company?
Thank you for this question. It's interesting that you say we're not going to talk about technology today, because I have a deep conviction that AI is not a technology topic, but it is actually a human topic. Having said that, so one of the things which is working for us at Club Med is that we have, in terms of success, let's say, we have been able to mobilize the whole company around this movement of AI, or AI first. And this journey actually started 5 years back, just after COVID. And when I joined the company in 2022, we decided to make a total revamp of our data infrastructure, data and AI infrastructure. Because after COVID, there were very less projects. During COVID, all our resorts were closed. So it was a good opportunity to work on certain foundational topics. And XCOM those days decided that we need to invest in revamping our data infrastructure towards a data factory, and then get ready. For the business once the business comes back after COVID. And I joined the company with this mandate of leading this data transformation. And the moment I finished the revamping of our data infrastructure, beginning of 2023 is when ChatGPT came on the scene. ChatGPT came on the scene, and I've been working in AI for the last 10, 15 years. I've been doing a lot of natural language processing and working with a lot of big brands. I immediately had a conviction that this technology is so powerful, it is going to profoundly change both the way the companies are operating, our companies operating, how people are working, but also the way consumers will behave in the future, and how the whole travel journey will get transformed thanks to generative artificial intelligence. Now, that was a big pivot for us, because that's when we decided that Club, as a company, we need to change our mindset from being a company which is following trends and following other companies' examples before trying to adopt new technologies. Here we said this technology is too powerful, and we have to be an early adopter, and why not a pioneer and set benchmarks. So that's when our whole process of research and development and innovation started, when we started to innovate with Anthropic, connecting it with our resort product information database, and making some retrieval augmented generation. Those days the models, I remember when we started, even GPT 3.5 was not out. It was GPT 3. So there was a lot of hallucinations. It was really difficult. But one thing we took advantage of those iterations and those learning experiences is that we created a very strong methodology or a strong structure in order to deliver products using AI and data, which allow us to target the right topics, the right pain points, and be successful in putting in production our use cases. And thanks to this approach, today, out of the 15, 20 use cases we have put in production, and we can talk about it later on, we have a production rate of 85%, which is much higher than the industry standards. MIT said it's 5%. There are other Gartner which says 25, 30%. So in any case, you take any figure, we are much higher thanks to this methodology. And obviously a methodology does not work if you don't have the right team in place, the right expertise in place. So we also emphasize on reskilling our technical teams first. And now over the last couple of years, we have trained more than 2,000 people around the company in the foundations of AI and data. And we are also trying to decentralize the whole approach as much as possible, with ambassadors and champions in different business units in countries, who are really working with us to create the enthusiasm around AI and ensure that we also move from, let's say, very centralized advanced AI solutions to more decentralized, self-service around AI and AI agents. Yeah.
Yes. So specifically on that point, because this is a very interesting point, right? So let's describe what's being managed centrally and what's being decentralized, right? So being decentralized is typically everything happening upstream, including the identification of potentially some use cases, some opportunity, and downstream driving the adoption. And then centralized is typically where you have, your center of excellence with some technical teams. How, if you can share, how are you structured at Club Med, and how are you managing this centralized, decentralized? Who is doing what?
Yeah, sure. So it's quite accurate what you just said, and it's not very far the way we are operating. So centrally, we have the data and AI team, which is organized as squads. So your squads is these lean and mean teams that I got inspired by the Spotify engineering model, with different expertise and 4 to 5 profiles in every squad. So we've got about 6, 7 squads which are able to deliver AI products, so whether AI, data, or agentic, end to end. So including creating our interfaces, the DevOps and security, all of it. So they're really Navy SEAL teams which are able to deliver products end to end. And we have the right roles around these squads, which are in charge of the governance. So governance could be on delivery, could be on technical, could be on data management, data quality. So we've got leaders who are operating around these squads to ensure that we are able to source the right topics, the right products. Okay. Now, and there are 2 decentralized roles that we have introduced in the company. So I spoke about the AI ambassador, and there's another role that we introduced. We call it the process designer. And process designer is a really fascinating role. Sometimes we even joke that this has to be the sexiest job in Club Med. And the role implies that a process designer is a domain expert. It could be finance, HR, legal, commercial, sales, marketing. They understand really well the way the function is working. To these people, we teach them about AI agents, and also about lean management, such as value stream mapping, to be able to really map end to end the processes that they work on and redesign them completely with an AI first mindset and AI agents in mindset, right? And we have somebody, Edith Glacé, who is a head of process excellence and AI data, products strategy. So she will animate the community of process designers. So we've got 25. By the end of the year, we'll have 50 of them, to really give them the tools in order to map their processes, and then automate or redesign these processes with AI and AI agents. And this redesign, or the execution of the redesign, can be done centrally. So if it is an advanced process end to end which requires RPA, automation, AI agents, then we do it centrally with the help of our squads. And if they are parts of the processes which can bring a lot of efficiency but can be managed locally in self-service, so that's where our AI ambassadors come into the picture. And we have today 150 AI ambassadors all around the world, as part of a community, and we got all of them together this year in a seminar in Marbella, to teach them, to train them, and to not only technically but also how to how to communicate, how to animate, how to create enthusiasm, all the soft skills. And these AI ambassadors are working hand in hand with us, but also with the HR to facilitate the self-service. It can be creating good prompts, it could be creating simple assistants, it could be also creating certain agents little more advanced, but which can be handled locally. So that's how we're trying to achieve scale. And in terms of massive end-to-end processes, so today we have about 17 processes which are being redesigned, out of which 6 to 7 have already been redesigned and deployed. And we're going to continue to do this, but also ensure that we are on the topics which bring maximum value, either bottom line or top line,
Of course.
to the enterprise. And the change management can be handled, because if you don't change the way the department is functioning, so you just can't optimize, right? So we're looking at redesigning the whole operating model.
Yeah. So this is making perfect sense. And I think it's very interesting for the audience to see that obviously the AI ambassador is a role that people are familiar with, but this process designer that has subject matter expertise and understand very well, what's happening across the organization and be able to map accurately the process. This is a role that you are describing that is, to me, seems to be very critical for the success here. So pretty large distributed team. If I may ask just the last question here, how big is your central team? How many people?
So central team is about 45 people,
Okay.
and 150 and growing ambassadors, and by the end of the year 50 process designers, so 200 plus 240. So it's becoming a large community. And if you add on top of that all the IT digital themes, so we're talking about a community of close to 500.
So it requires human resources to drive AI transformation for sure, right? For people who are thinking that they can drive transformation with a couple of people left and right. I mean, of course, this is correlated to the size of the organization, but this is really important to understand. So thanks for that. So the second question I have, which is a very typical situation when we are transforming and injecting AI, and whether that AI is for the employee of the company or is targeted towards the client base, there's always a notion of what happened when something goes wrong, right? This notion of ownership and accountability of AI. So one of the things that is interesting for us to understand is when you are rolling out your agents, when you are targeting those processes, some of them might be business critical to the company. There's obviously a need here to make sure that the ownership and the accountability is very well designed, that the framework around it is very solid, so that when something goes wrong, it's being handled correctly. Not just hallucination, but any kind of issue that can happen when we are, addressing a process with technology. So could you expand on that, how you handle this?
Yeah, sure. So I was talking about the structured methodology. So one of the first things, or one of the first governance that we wanted to tackle was ethics before anything else. Why ethics? Because once we decided that Club Med has to be a champion in AI, we said, how can we align this with the values of the company, which is so human, deeply human? And there's something not making sense. How can Club Med be a pioneer in AI, being a human company, even though as practitioners we know how valuable AI is for enforcing or growing the human touch, but then it's not intuitive externally or to the collaborators, employees. So there I had the great privilege of talking with my professor from Sorbonne University, Professor Jean Gabriel Ganassia, who was the head of the chairman of ethics committee of CNRS, and then LAPOS, Pôle Emploi. Now it is France Travail. And I had the opportunity to talk to him, and I said that how can I tackle this topic of ethics, and what kind of principles do we need? So there he suggested an approach which was extremely making sense and valuable. Was that said that you cannot define principles of ethics, because you're not legitimate to do so. So you need to create a committee, an ethics committee, and you need to put all the key stakeholders in this committee, and you need to discuss. You need to discuss, and you need to understand, align, and then obviously there are frameworks around ethics, around transparency, and personal data and confidentiality, and there are frameworks. You can use those frameworks, but it has to be a collective consensus as to what principles we are going to use, and then how we are going to implement them. Right. So that is number one. So we were also very quick to create this ethics committee. So every time we have a new use case, where there are some questions, we do this quarterly ethics committee, and then we try to analyze and find some solutions. So that's one. Secondly, we also have a technical committee, or an AI tech committee, again, where we bring together the key stakeholders, the cybersecurity, the AI infrastructure, the data infrastructure, the digital product heads, etc. And then we ensure that we have the right governance pillars, whether it is FinOps, whether it is security, AI safety, or the operating model, the AI platform. So we create roadmaps, synchronized roadmaps, which ensures that the way we are building these solutions is ethically compliant, but also technically robust, and it includes obviously the observability and monitoring when it is mission critical. So the golden rule is that you need to have the right pillars, whether it's technical, whether ethical, and a right governance, and not try and implement AI unless and until these foundations are really rock solid. Because otherwise, what will happen is you will be able to deliver pilots, but you may not be able to go into production and get real value and scale out of them. Because when those things, as you rightly said, don't work, you don't know what to fall back on, and that removes the credibility. And once the credibility is gone, then you're not able to bring along so many hundreds of people together and create that enthusiasm and motivating and inspiring the employees around this topic is extremely important. So you have to do things in a way which is credible, which is convincing, because otherwise you lose them, and then to build traction afterwards is much more harder.
Yeah. So this committee and this framework slash governance was created from the beginning, even before you move to production any single use case, right?
We evolved for sure. So I didn't read a book because no book existed then in 2023 when we started the adventure. Yeah, the ethics committee, within the first 3 or 4 months of our research and development, we put it in place, right? And then we deployed our first use case in production. The squad model was still not ready. But one thing that we did, which was, I think, a turning point, was starting to create memorandums of understanding. After we failed our first couple of use cases, we said that we must have a memorandum of understanding with our stakeholders, so internal stakeholder, business unit, could be marketing, sales, to ensure that we have the right accountability, the right metrics, KPIs, and what we're expecting out of it. So we took time to document the MOU, and then just symbolically, I made my stakeholders sign it using DocuSign to say that, look, we want to be sure that we are doing the right things. But at that time, the organization was not fully the way it is today. We didn't have a technical committee, but we had this MOU in place, which allowed us to ensure that we are not forgetting certain critical aspects of governance, technical or legal or ethical. Eventually, in 2025, after we started having our first successes, we decided to make a strategic pivot, and this pivot was making a strategic pivot towards AI first. So AI first means is that, all right, so now we can't just implement use cases in production, on, let's say, very targeted pain points. We need to really shift the whole operating model of the company, right? And when we decided to do this is when we strongly reorganized the teams, and we strongly thought about the governance end to end, from the data, AI, digital, technology. And that's when we created the technical committee with all the streams of the technical committee and leaders of these streams who are in charge of each of the streams, and they are accountable for these streams. And now with the squad based model and the ambassadors and the self-service, so we kind of have like the whole factory in place and giving results.
Very interesting. By the way, if that's well documented, that could be even a blueprint that could be open source, to the world. I mean, honestly, because the extent to which you've been able to structure correctly and iterate a couple of times to have something that is solid and mature is extremely interesting for people who are still not there, right? So maybe a couple of question around the execution and the outcome, right? I'm a big fan of talking about the result and the outcome instead of talking about the tools and the technology. So you somehow mentioned that obviously you had some, not everything is working first time. Some things are failing when trying to deliver outcome. Maybe a question for you is around giving advice, sharing your wisdom with the audience here around what does it take for the team, probably especially the central team, to make sure that they are, truly delivering business result, right? So what are the key core capability, the key core mindset that needs to be in place to make sure that we deliver outcome and we don't just do technology project for the sake of technology.
Yeah, and before answering that question, it's interesting that you spoke about iteration. um, and this is actually very important in any kind of an organization, is to strike the right balance between innovation and business. For example, in my team, we inspired from, obviously, some other companies. We allow all our team members to do 20%, use 20% of the time on innovation, or sandboxing, trying different stuff, testing, prototyping, and they don't have to talk about it, they don't have to show results, but if something works, then then they can come and pitch it, and then we can move forward with it, right? So that's a stream, which allows you to keep being creative. Otherwise, you put in place such strict rules, and then you can no longer be too creative and take risks, right? So you have this sandboxing and innovation which is going on in continuity. And then, so the three things that I spoke about, right? The first one is you need to have the right skill sets, because without the skills and without the discipline, you can't really achieve something. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is that you need to work on the right pain points. And when I say pain points, the right processes, the right microprocesses, which requires reinvention. So that's where you can actually drive the big transformations. Otherwise, you're just going after low hanging fruits forever and ever. Yeah. So if you really want to be successful, then go after processes or pain points which require real reinvention, which require real discussion with the stakeholders, the top level management, the internal clients, and then try and figure out what is the maturity of the company to be able to reinvent this workflow work stream with AI. And obviously, I mean, drive everything with serious KPIs. Are you going for top line growth? Are you going for savings, efficiencies? Are you going for employee satisfaction, client satisfaction? So be very clear about what are you going after. I was joking the other day, I said that when you're a commercial business unit, you have your targets. So you have your revenue, you have your return rate, loyalty, margins, etc., and everybody is working towards that, right? There's no other question. But in technology departments, what happens is that because you don't have such precise metrics, so anybody can do what they want without being caught for not doing the right things. So it's difficult, but then you need to have this commercial mindset, while balancing innovation and sandboxing, that you are not there to do R&D and technology, as you mentioned. You're there to serve and to respond to some critical business needs, and you're supposed to drive the business instead of responding or just doing trying to fix problems. If you go with that mindset that we need to change the way we are doing the business, for that we need to drive the change, we need to drive the right technology, right tool sets, with the right business cases, invariably you figure out what you need to achieve that.
Yeah. And for the technical team to be able to understand that having technical KPI is not enough, you need to be able to connect the dot with the P&L and with the real, high level strategic KPI of the company. This is really important, right? But by the way, in your organization somewhere, do you have people dedicated on doing business cases? How do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a golden rule, and it's part of the methodology, which is which has few steps in the beginning. The first one is an audit step, whether it's an inbound project or a outbound project where we are going for. First thing we try and understand is that, does the use case exist? Does the pain point exist? Sometimes the problem doesn't exist, and you're trying to find a solution. So that's number one. Is it a serious case? That has to be before you go to business. Is there a serious case?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And is it big enough, right? Because this is also something to look at.
Yeah, big enough, or yeah, exactly. So that's number one. And then number two is, so once you realize that, okay, there is a pain point, then what is the business case? What is the business case? What is the KPI that we are going after? And is it making sense, right, to spend time on it? That's the second part. So that's where we have a team. So we have the process excellence team. We also have somebody. So now I have a new role in the team. I've created a role called the value tracking manager, AI value tracking manager. So somebody who is creating the P&L of our initiatives and linking it to the P&L of the company, and use case by use case, process by process. So this person will also be highly involved in creating the right business case. So you may have a case, you may have a business case which is quite valuable, but you need to know whether you have the resources and time to market, to be able to deliver it. So that's where, like the frameworks of Gartner, we will do a real analysis or mapping of value versus complexity. So it's valuable, but is it too complex? Is it something which the organization is not ready in terms of change, or we have legacy behind, or there are other priorities to manage before? Otherwise, you'll be setting yourself for failure. So at the end of the day, what we come is, we have this, prioritization engine, which is constantly churning business cases and ensuring that on that map of value versus complexity, we are able to map and go after those points which are the most optimized on the X and Y axis of value versus optimization, and then and then working with the squads to ensure that they are delivered. Okay, another thing I'll mention is that another golden rule that we set kind of informally, but we try to follow it, is that we are not going to work on a use case which will take more than 3 months, maximum 6 months, to go into production and demonstrate serious value and scale. So 6 months is for attaining scale, and 3 months is permitted to have a pilot, which starts to show value. So the team is constantly in this mindset of anticipating, even if we have started initiatives, that are we going to deliver, within 3 months, at least the pilot. So this forces you to avoid trying to boil the ocean.
Yeah. Big monster project that never get in.
Yes, any project which would take, and we've gone through this. We've had projects which we have ran for 3 years before delivering, or partially delivering,
Yeah.
for 18 months, because of alignment issues, because of legacy issues, data quality issues. That's why the 15% failure rate that we have are these experiences, of not being aggressive enough to ensure that your timelines are short, that you are going after the most critical problems, which are rightly optimized on the value versus complexity scale.
Yeah, very interesting here to see that actually a lot of the things that you've put in place here are things that I am personally advising some company to do. So there's a notion of, I think we understand each other here, connecting the dot to the business, not working on project forever, having a sense of urgency, not doing technology for technology's sake. I call it not falling in love with the tool, right? Those kind of things. So maybe another question that can be interesting here for the audience, people who are trying to set that up, right? So you mentioned one of the key things here for success is having the right skill set. When you look at your team, right, is your team only and entirely an internal team? Did you have to, at least initially, expand with external resources? Do you have an hybrid model? Do you have a fully internalized model? What is your view around, having your own skills versus hiring, renting, buying skills out there? And I'm not talking about tools and technology. I'm purely talking about resources here. What is your view around that, right? Because I get a lot of people asking me, should I hire? Should I rent? What's your view around that, around getting the right skill set?
Yeah. So, as we are talking about using AI to reinvent the business model, the operating model, etc. So I'll be pretty, honest over here, that it's highly essential to have control on this technology and internalize the core intelligence or the core platforms. Have the foundational team which is internal to the company. Having said that, these are skill sets which are quite rare. So our approach has been, since the last 5 years, is to find the right balance. So we've had, obviously, internal talents, but 50% of our task force or workforce on these topics are contractors or our external, talents who we bring into the company. And we also take advantage of these external talents to retrain the internal talents, right?
Yeah.
Because they learn from them, and over a period of time, try and increase this ratio of internal versus external, because it's always a good idea to keep skill sets, internally, but always take advantage of, because now you also have young talents, in AI, in engineering, etc., who don't want to work for a company all their life, or for 5 years. They want to work for different companies on different days, etc. So even the work model is changing. So we have to adapt to the way the young people are thinking and how they want to work, and make sure that you strike the right balance, but always have good documentation. because internal or external, you can always have employees who are quitting, resigning, or contractors changing missions. So ensure that nobody's indispensable. You have the right documentation. So that's on people. And in terms of solutions, I do believe that in AI, the moat is the data that you put inside that AI, right? So I believe that when you have the data which is required to train the AI or the agents internally, it's better to build your agents by yourself. However, on certain topics, where collecting that high quality data can be pretty costly and difficult, and you may have companies outside who have already spent decades collecting that data, and for them to build that agent on top of it is much easier. So I'm talking about stuff like legal and contractual and certain economic stuff, business stuff,
Yeah.
where we don't have the right data set. So I don't see the value of spending too much of resources trying to build that data set and then create those agents. I'm very open to buying or renting, as you said, solutions from external companies who have already mastered that data piece, because the agentic piece is not very hard today. 2026, most companies can build. If put little effort, you can create that architecture, but what's hard is the data.
Yeah. I think the way you are describing it, I'm fully aligned with what you are describing, right? So first, in terms of overall ownership, this is so business critical for any company that you need to own it. You cannot outsource that stuff and rely on other people to drive your destiny, right? You need to be the owner. This has to be an internal ownership, clearly, because it is strategic, it is critical. On the people side, this is exactly what I have as a conversation with my own customer, which is you need to have your own people, but where you have gaps, skill
Gotcha.
gaps, where you have experience gap, you can augment yourself and basically do staff augmentation, but it has to be an internal team that is augmented by external resources. Exactly what you've done, fully aligned here. And then on the technology, as you said, right, there's very specific agent that you might not want to build yourself because you don't have the data or you don't have the experience. But then everything related, what is core to your business and your data, you need to do it yourself. So I think this is, like the right approach and the right balance between I do what I need to do and I keep the ownership of everything. And sometimes I go outside to get people or to get agent because it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now, if we compare agents as digital collaborators, so you need to think of the org chart of those agents. So you'll have some agents which are built internally, who are part of the company DNA, because we have the data, we have the expertise, we know the business rules, we can control the system, right? We can supervise it. Control is very important. And then and sometimes we will hire lawyers from outside, or we'll hire consultants from outside. So it would make sense to hire some agents from outside, where we know that the third party who's operating these agents are controlling the narrative, and they can give that SLA, this SLA that is required to adopt those solutions.
Yeah. So probably last question here, closing this. So I consider, and not just me, a lot of people are looking at what you've done and what Club Med has done in terms of this AI first approach, in terms of moving from, not being the first to make the change, to becoming the one driving and being the first, making the change and successfully achieving a transformation that is visible not just internally but also externally, right? If you have to give a couple of advice to a leader who know they have to move faster, they know they have to build this internal capability that we just described, they have to do it properly, they have no choice, what would you tell them that they need to do right now? A couple of things.
Yeah, so talking about the transformation, and you must have seen it, that a few months back we got this recognition of being the AI company of the year in France. And again, this was a really sweet moment, because Club Med, which is such a human company, getting out of all the companies in the world,
Bravo.
getting AI company of thank you, AI company of the year. And we asked the people who gave us the recognition that what did you like about what we did, and they said that three things. One is the AI first strategy. So AI first is really interesting, and I think one needs to understand it, because the world will no longer operate the way it has been operating. At the same time, I don't believe that every company needs to have an AI first strategy. It depends on your business model, on your maturity, etc. So try to understand what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses as an organization, without choosing how forward looking or how defensive or how risk averse strategy that you want to create. I think everything begins from there. As they say, strategy eats execution for breakfast. So the strategy is extremely important. What is my north star? What am I as an organization? What are my pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses? So once that's clear, then you need to demonstrate value. Because having said everything that I've said so far, we still operate in a technology field which is quite abstract for most business leaders who don't understand what's happening. And there is this black box and opaque nature of our field industry, especially in traditional companies. I'm not talking about the tech companies per se. So you need to demonstrate value, which is start small. And this is what I've done over my career, is always start with few use cases with low investment, but work on the governance, work on the change, discuss with people, and try to make sure that you're able to go till the end. Don't abandon the initiative. Make sure that you don't launch the initiative if you're not convinced. But once you've launched it, try to go till the end. Fight for it, not literally, but fight for the cause. Go till the end of it. And once you've gone till the end of it, then sell it. Selling is not just for startups and consulting firms, but even internally you need to spend a lot of time selling the vision and selling what you've done, because only then that you will get that, as I said, the enthusiasm, and your stakeholders will start saying that this is something that works. And if you're able to capture that demand, then go for scale. And scale means don't launch too many initiatives, too many projects. Choose the amount of projects which has to be directly proportional to the investments you have, etc. But those initiatives that you have chosen to fight for, make sure that you scale them. So when I say scale it, if you're a global company, then ensure that the use case is deployed in every country, in every market, in every language. If it is an internal tool that you're building, make sure that every employee or the audience that you are targeting, they are all using it, adopting it. And again, fight for it. Create, communicate, create manuals, create communications, newsletters, etc. Create that enthusiasm. And the third point I would say is, which was again linked to the recognition we got, is don't hesitate to share what you're doing externally. Make sure that you're not sharing anything very confidential, any industry secrets. But don't hesitate to go to forums and conferences and share what you're doing, because when you're sharing, getting feedbacks, and feedback is so important in leadership. So you get that feedback, and you learn, and you teach others. So that allows you to continuously refine what you're doing and understand what's going right, what is going wrong. But having said all of this, the final thing I would say is that AI, or AI first, is first and foremost a leadership posture or a leadership topic. So you can do everything that I said, but if the leaders of the organization, it starts from the CEO till the managers, if they don't have the right leadership posture, this transformation is hard. And in terms of leadership posture, we have a model, which we work with HR to deploy, and I'm going to end with that. So it has 4 qualities. The first one is that, embrace AI. You must have a strategic leadership or mindset where you're constantly projecting the future and not working in the present. So with AI, how does that contextualize? That certain AI models, certain tools are not working today, but as a leader you can abandon that, because within 3 months it may not be the case, because this is a technology which is accelerating so rapidly. Second one is authenticity. So you have to be honest and authentic, and create enthusiasm, which I already mentioned. So that's the second one. The third quality that leaders and managers need to have within companies is the ability to influence. Because if you're not influencing, if you're not using your network internally, externally, then you will not understand what are the key issues, what are the pain points, the bottlenecks, and not be able to work on the right topics, right? And the final one, which for me is the most important, that the leaders in these companies need to adopt a mindset of a coach. Because you need to coach your team, you need to coach your colleagues, train them, explain to them, and have this mindset of coaching permanently to get the ball rolling. So to end, leadership has to be on the right mindset, and then everything else will follow.
Yeah. So, Sid, amazing to have a conversation with you. I think there's so much content here that I am urging you to write a book. I think you should do that because everything that you have described here, based on my many years experience of driving those transformation across clients, it's all there, and it's a really great success story that should be documented. And I'm saying a book as a joke or not for you to think about it, but it's pretty interesting for the audience to see a company that has been able to do that, especially a company, as you said, that is very heavy on the human capital side, right? So again, thanks for your time. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you for the invitation. Bye bye.